that's got it all for you in the chat. So, well, we're off.
Now, one thing that also is randomized usually is items 2 and 3. Those are generally our two items that don't get randomized. Outside of that, everything else, as far as weapons and item 1, is randomized.
So Dagit finding Crashman off the bat and pretty much just quickly scurried away. Crashman is one of the stages you really don't want to find early. One of the more dangerous stages and one that could be nigh impossible to pass without particular items. So he resets out of there quickly and winds up going to Metal Man while Charlieboy begins his assault on this particular seed with Quickman, which is one of the better starts for the randomizer.
I will say it's a bit of a different take for Dagit, considering last night when we were here, he got Heatman both times in his seeds and ended up going with it. It's nice to see that he will opt out of a stage if he picks the wrong one first.
Well, at least with Heatman, you'll probably have more of a chance to continue as opposed to, say, Crash where you got some definite roadblocks like rabbits, shrimp, those kinds of enemies. You just don't want to take a chance on Crashes compared to Heat. But anyway, we got Charlieboy just a few screens away from Quickman's room, while Dagit is not too far himself heading towards Metal Man's room. Of course, for those familiar with the randomizer, everyone should know that the bosses are randomized per stage. So let's see if Charlieboy is gonna get one of them.
Looks like we got Heat, which is not exactly a good first Robot Master, but he's good enough that he's Buster susceptible. But he is a slow Heat, and we got Quickman and Metal Room on the belt. But he isn't Buster susceptible, so this may be a longer fight for Dagit than for Charlieboy.
And Charlieboy does quickly dispatches of Heatman. We're gonna get an item that's along the way, and this time not quite. Meanwhile, Dagit just pulling out the kill of Quickman right out the skin of his teeth. And of course, we don't have items in either of our stages, and we got ourselves a bit of reverse action, a little bit of trading places.
Yeah, just a slight swap, so we get to see our runners approach their new stages in a different way, maybe.
Yeah, so these two stages are pretty good, especially for our rule set. This is zipless. Our 2020 tournament is going to be all zipless, so going to Metal Man early is actually pretty good because you don't have to worry about trying to utilize any items for any potential zip opportunities. Of course, you would rather have item 2 to fly over the second half, but it's not that much of a time lost in comparison, so not too bad of our starting points for our two runners.
Interesting to see Charlieboy try and ignore the Joes when it looks like they take 3 Buster shots, which is pretty normal for me. Figured anything that requires 4 more lemons is a pretty beefy enemy on stage.
Charlieboy about to approach his Quickman battle. Dagit is not too far behind, approaching the Quickman door where his slow burn Heatman is going to be awaiting him. We're going to see how Charlieboy is able to handle Quick.
Looks like he's going to stick with the Buster, which I don't blame him. Quickman is one of those Robot Masters where trying to do a little item search may not be the fastest way to go about it, and just use the Buster and get him down, and it looks like he's got it well in hand. Dagit starting his fight with Heatman. Now, we talked about how Heatman isn't particularly great Robot Master to see first off, but this stage kind of makes him a little trivial, as he goes back and forth on one plane, but when he shoots those atomic fire shots, they tend to get stuck in the floor when he fires them.
So we got Charlieboy going to Bubble Man. We're going to see there's some divergence, and indeed there is. We got Dagit going to Flashman. Another one of Flashman is one of the more straightforward stages. Bubble Man stage, on the other hand, which is pitch black on Charlieboy's end.
That could pose a challenge considering our spikes are, well, black.
Not to mention that thanks to the zipless route set, now you actually got to huff it in the underwater section. So you got to deal with all the clustered enemies that could be laid out in the area. Right now, we got our usual shrimp, but we got a couple of automatons that are blocking the way.
Yeah, you imagine Charlie might take the time to use iframes and damage boost his way through. Looks like we're getting our tracker finally set up and going. Shoutouts to Kame for doing the tracking.
So let's see, we got prop tops on Daggison. So part of the way, we may still have prop tops, but crabs are definitely something you don't want to see at the top of the trash man's room. It's one of those areas where you saw what happened.
Well, never mind about getting that E-Tank. It looks like we got a relatively vanilla flash stopper this seed, but he gets to the door all the same. We're going to have a bit of a robo sinkage going on here with our two runners. Dagit getting the door just slightly ahead. And we got Bubble Man and Flash Room. We got Crash and, well, looks like Dagit gotten into Bubble Man's eyesight, but takes us down all the same. Charlieboy taking down Crash Man rather quickly with the Buster, and both the runners are neck and neck, but Dagit gets rewarded with item 2, and Charlieboy gets rewarded with item 3. So good finds for our runners. Dagit's going off to Heatman next with that item 2.
Charlieboy following Dagget's footsteps, going to Flashman himself, gonna get himself item 2 eventually once he beats a pretty easy Bubble Man. Right now, as we go to our heated stores, it's not the hardest enemy set you'll probably see in this area, but it's definitely one of the more annoying with Protots chasing you and some of the bats just in awkward positions where jumping can be a bit of a trial. But most of the time you're probably just going to damage boost through them anyway and just brute force your way across the area. But what's going to be interesting is what's going to be at the midpoint.
So it looks like we're going to deal with a laggy section here with the Chanky Makers.
Yeah, for those that don't know how we know what's coming up ahead, in some screens and some stages, depending on what enemy it is, you can a few screens after there you can notice that they are going to be immediately after the enemy that we've seen. So it's a little bit of pre-knowledge when you get experience with the randomizer, as Charlieboy is about to face Bubbleman on his end. It's knowing those little details that can prepare you for what enemy is going to be coming up along your path.
Charlieboy is doing the strategy I like to do against Bubbleman. Now, I think other seeds you've seen Bubbleman in this position where he's on a higher platform, and other stages like this is Quickman. And as long as you're not on the same eye level as Bubbleman, he will not move. So Charlieboy used that to his advantage and jumped up and pretty much shot him in his toe multiple times.
And of course, with Flashman being down, he should have his item 2 ready. So fortunately, he continues to follow slightly in Dagget's footsteps in Heatman, while Dagget is about to go to Heatman's room and see what's actually in said room.
Looks like we got some smelting metal blades here.
A little bit of a fast shooter, this Metal Man, but he's also pretty soft buster weak, so Dagget just pretty much takes him out 9 instantly. So pretty much a good setup, and we find item 1 in its vanilla spot. So we pretty much got all the weapons, well, most of the items we need to take care of the rest of the game. Of course, Dagget still needs to find his item 3, but soon Charlieboy's gonna pretty much be stocked by the end of Heatman stage.
Upside is we know where that item 3, and that's on Bubble. And Dagget does know where Crashman is, so he'll at least get the Bubble Man stage before that.
Charlieboy was opting to use the item 2 to ignore the Chanky Makers, opting to do the Yokus instead. Not a bad strategy, one I've been seeing done more and more recently. Speaking of item 2 strategies, Dagget opting to use item 2 to go by the first half of, well, most of the first half of Airman stage seeing those air crabs along the way, yeah, you kind of want to just make sure to just safely fly over them, not worry about them too much.
Now, at this point, I honestly don't want to say who's in the lead, because we could just say at this point Charlieboy has a lead, but we won't really know until we actually get to Wiley's stages who has the lead, so we're going to hold that in my back pocket for now.
So we got Charlieboy facing off against our quick shooting Metal Man, and takes him out quickly. He's gonna get item 1 as his extra prize. Meanwhile, the seafood buffet in the sky just seems to be literally infested in the air. Dagit just taking careful steps since the cloud is obstructing the crab's falling position, and taking those pause buffers to make sure his landing is a very safe one. These are definitely one of those enemy sets that you just want to take extreme care for, thanks to potential crabs just getting in your face unexpectedly and you just dive into a pit.
Now, if you didn't see on Charlieboy's side, he saw Fat Beans in the first room of the stage, and so we're going to be seeing those on as we make our way through the elevator section here, as Dagit's about to take on Woodman in Airman's room, going to consume an E-Tank so then he can continue the onslaught on Woodman here, as he looks like he's pretty weak to the Buster, so this should be a quick fight, all things considered, and down they go.
Well, for the record, all Robot Masters are technically weak to the Buster. He's not necessarily soft weak, which would deal 4 damage. But regardless of the matter, it's still a pretty easy Woodman to deal with. Just pop him through his shield and just plug him full of lemons, and yeah, we got Woodman down, and now we're actually in Woodman stage.
Springtime in Woodman stage, and with this, he's gonna go to probably Bubble Man next, because again, Dagit went to Crashman stage first. So he knows where that is, so he won't be approaching Crashman stage until afterwards.
Charlieboy making great use of that item 3, performing the crash climb as quickly as he possibly can. Opting to go for that E-Tank. Always wise to get those E-Tanks where you can. It may be a little bit out of the way and can waste a couple of seconds, but it's nothing compared to not having an E-Tank in stock for later stages, or even the current fight that he's about to approach, where massive time losses can cause some major swings between our two runners.
Yeah. Alright, so now that I see Flashman here, I believe the one Robot Master we haven't seen yet, here, which is pretty much here in Woodman stage on Dagit's screen, is going to end up being Airman, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you should be correct. Speaking of which, the treehouse was pretty kind to Dagit, pretty much gone through there safe and sound, and he's about to go do a final descent and then the last horizontal stretch before he reaches Woodman. Meanwhile, Charlieboy is about to follow suit, where he's going to go to our Springtime Woodman stage, where a little bit of eco-terrorism with our Chanky Makers just happen to be along the area. The crabs just happen to be extra casualties.
Alright, here we go. Let's see if Airman will be a bro to Dagit.
Wisely stocking up on that E-Tank in the first pattern. Not the most favorable, but you can squeeze through.
Bro enough, I think?
Yeah, it's kind of a questionable bro niche. But as we expected, Dagit's going to bubble, saving the Crashman stage that he found earlier for last. So he will get his item 3 and will also be fully stocked when he goes there.
But first, he's going to get a little delayed by the crabs and shrimp here.
Trying to use that item 2 to fly over. That's why item 2, while definitely faster to do in that part, isn't necessarily dependable because of those kinds of enemies that can just snap you out in the air and just makes you waste that item 2 energy.
Charlieboy dangerously low on energy, but gets a big energy refill there, lucky from the drop.
Treehouse not being as kind to Charlieboy as compared to Dagit this seed, but like you said, fortunately to get that energy drop, and he should be continuing on where he's going to be facing off against Airman in a little bit. Meanwhile, Dagit, taking care of our pitch black water along the way, going to be taking on, it was Crashman that was in this stage.
Yep.
Bubble, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so in some due time, Dagger will be on his way there, but he still got to deal with those crabs that were displayed in the beginning. They will be the enemies in the very end. You saw the same on Charlieboy's side, but let's see how Dagger is able to handle it.
Now I said earlier I was willing to hold he's in the lead in my back pocket, but I think right now at this point we can probably fairly say that Charlieboy has a subtle lead. It might probably like a half stage lead maybe, but he does have a lead.
I don't know about a half a stage, maybe about a quarter to a third of a stage maybe, once Dagger takes care of Crash. But right now, since we're on our last Robot Masters, we can definitely say that Charlieboy does have some kind of an advantage. It's a small advantage, but an advantage nonetheless.
Now, that was actually a semi-dumb crash there for Daggett, as sometimes Crashman AI that gets randomized. Sometimes when you start firing at him with the Buster, he won't jump and he'll just walk back and forth. So, somewhat dumb crash for us there.
Daggett beginning his long stretch towards Crashman stage, probably the longest stage. So once Daggett is done with it, Charlieboy might be well on his way starting Wally 1, but there's still quite a bit of stretch to go in Airman stage, which pretty much was Red Lobster in the sky.
Yeah, lots of crabs and shrimp, so if anything, they'll slow him down just enough for Daggett to possibly catch up, but we'll see how Charlie approaches the second half of Airman stage here as Daggett deals with the fat fiends in the elevator section now.
Charlieboy getting himself a bit of a lucky drop, deciding to use that for his item too, so he's going to be able to get a little bit of an extra leeway as far as going through the second half of Airman stage compared to Daggett, but he's still stalling a little bit, making sure that he doesn't make any kind of careless movements against this really awkward enemy set.
Yeah, looks like he has it well in hand, as that air shooter was taking down both the shrimp and the crabs in one go.
Charlieboy making his way to the Airman boss room. Once again, we got to deal with Woodman. Woodman shouldn't be too hard to deal with. Opting to check air since he has it out. Not a weakness, but he's just going to stick with the pea shooter and just plug through his shields and just pretty much just make kindling out of them.
Yep, but with that is 8 rovers down at 1805, and we're off to Wily stages and the best eyebrows in the game. So, ladies and gentlemen of Speed Gaming 4, we of the Mega Man 2 Randomizer community like to play a little game. That game involves you guessing the color of the dragon, and for extra points, guess the weakness. So, as my esteemed colleague, LB3, you can have the first guess this season.
I've been seeing a lot of green dragons this tournament. I'm gonna say it's a green dragon, but the weakness is gonna be bubbles.
See, I'm gonna stick with my usual pick for the first seed, which is always gonna be a purple grimace dragon, and that purple grimace dragon is gonna be weak to Crash.
Kame, I know you're around and you want to play this. You can come out of the kitchen right quick and give us a guess.
I appreciate your permission. I don't want to get slapped like last time. No, I'm gonna go with I don't know, some type of brown dragon, weak to Metal Blade.
Alright, so we got all our guesses, at least the commentators' guess locked in, and Comment Sen as well. Shout out to Comment Sen for his job being behind the scenes on the tracker. Charlieboy is just a few screens away from the final stretches, heading toward the auto scroller that leads to the dragon, we will have our color coming up very shortly. Dagit just about half a stage away, gonna stock up on some energy before continuing his climb up. Very close race so far. One good death could mean a sudden lead change. That little Seahawks blue and green.
I would agree, but we're on Metal Blade. How about Crash? Oh, that looks like it did damage. It sure did.
I was just wrong about everything. As is tradition.
Well, that's still one weakness. I don't think he even tried Buster at that time, resorting to sticking to the second page and checking out weaknesses. But regardless, Charlieboy does take down the Mega Dragon, and he will begin his race in Wily 2, while Dagit's not too far behind, about to start his Find the Mecha Dragon with Buster in tow. We're gonna see we had a Buster-y dragon the entire time, and Charlieboy might have wasted a little bit of weapon energy in killing the dragon.
Wow.
Alright, I take points by default because it was Buster Week.
I'm sure you will, Kami.
I'm gonna have to ask gonna have to look the rulebook for that one.
Charlieboy opting to skip the E-Tank and the walls. Charlieboy usually likes to ignore those walls, wanting to just go ahead and check the wall weakness at the same time for the boobing weakness, which is why checking the crash walls for its weakness is important. The crash walls is randomized for one weapon, and that weapon will never be the same weapon for the booming turrets. So checking them out early is recommended, but you can always risk it and just take the time to look at it while under fire from the boomings, just to have it at the same time.
Yeah, because if you're fortunate enough, the boomings could be weak to one of the god weaknesses, and you can just use the god weaknesses to take down the boomings without destroying a single crash wall. Meanwhile, Charlieboy found Metal and Quick for the Pico blocks here, and it looks like he's going to stick with Quick to take him down.
Dagit finds ourselves a weakness for the walls, and it is one of those god weaknesses for the booming cannons. Leaf Shield is one of those weaknesses, so that is going to be out of the window for the Wily 4 boss. So Metal Blade, and we haven't seen Air Shooter yet. If it's a vertical Air Shooter, it would definitely be good for the booming turrets, but that's going to be for later. Right now, Charlieboy, did he have to use the E-Tank?
He did. He used the E-Tank. He was definitely dangerously low.
Yeah, I thought he was struggling a little bit. But Dagit's not too far behind, literally just a boss fight behind Charlieboy as he's just slowly creeping up on him. We're going to see if he can find Metal, Quick, or maybe one quicker weakness.
And we do know what's... Oh...
What about that being a quicker weakness?
Kami, did you roll this seed? It has your weaknesses in it.
I did.
Actually, Kami is not joking. He really did roll this seed.
If only you could have gotten this seed.
Oh, I could never get this seed.
Charlieboy taking down our underwater chickens in Wily 3. About to make his stretch towards the guts tanking a little bit. Dagit catching up a little bit more time thanks to the Buster Week Pico Toasters, and then he begins his way to Wily 3. So right now, Dagit's just slowly closing in the gap, but Charlieboy is still holding on to his lead very vigorously. So we're gonna see if Charlieboy can continue to press his advantage. But first, we still gotta see what the Guts Tank's gonna be weak to.
Yeah, I almost get knocked into the pit by that rope, by that atomic chicken, and nope, sadly our Buster weakness train stops at the tank.
Charlieboy doing the weakness shuffle, going to the second page. And
well, so I've talked about this before. Sometimes one of the weaknesses for the dragon ends up coming up again for the Guts tank, and we had Charlie use the crash bomb on the dragon, and we downed it again for the tank.
I'm gonna have to look into that. The theory is sounding more and more probable as the races go on. Something to look into. Meanwhile, Dagit goes against his fight against the Gus tank. We're gonna see if he finds a different weakness compared to Crash. Meanwhile, Charlieboy is doing what we would like to say is the great equalizer in Wally 4, as we find Leaf Shield to be the second weakness for the Guts tank.
That Leaf did a lot more damage than the Crash Bomb, so I think Dagit may have made up some time there as he approaches Wily 4 here, where we're coming up to the Great Equalizer, as we like to call for the randomizer, or sometimes we like to call it the Great Educator, because, well, you're gonna learn.
Actually, Charlieboy took a slight dip, falling in one of those fake platforms, so he lost a little bit of time. So Dagit yet again just creeping up on Charlieboy as we get into our four-prong anxiety rooms, where yeah, this is going to be an interesting enemy set. Chanky Makers is one of the most agitating enemies you want to see. Very laggy. If you want to damage boost and use item 1, you will take a lot of damage in order to use it. We're going to see if he has any item 2, because I'm pretty sure he wants to fly over this particular screen right here.
It's going to be tight. Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen. That's pretty great nose for Dagit right there.
Yeah, and he is very low on item 1, so he's gonna just take he's gonna probably have to take the ride.
Oh, this race has gotten real good now.
Yeah, they said that Dagit is literally right on his tail. So Charlieboy, not managing his items correctly, just winds up giving Dagit just a little bit more leeway, just closing in on him very, very steadily. They're literally right on the same screen right now, just about a few pixels away from each other. So close, Dagit can probably literally sniff the feet that Charlieboy is just walking right behind him.
Now, generally in this kind of situation, when I see something like this, I like to come in with the metal blades, because one of the things about the Chanky Makers is they're not randomized. So it takes 3 metal blades to take down 1 Chanky Maker. And through that, you can at least take out the top one, and then you can pull out that item 2 to get across here. Oh no!
Dagit mistimes his item 2 placement. It was too high in the ceiling. If it's way too high in the ceiling, the item 2 will not emerge, and it will disappear as it connects towards the ceiling. Whatever catch-up time Dagit might have had, he lost it by making that very critical error.
Well, we were trying to have a race, and now it's gone. Well, Charlieboy is about to approach the booby fights here, as he's got to do a little both booby turn hunting and... oh, never mind.
Charlieboy is striking gold with our second God weakness being available. We know the Leaf Shield was one of the wall weaknesses, but hey, when the other God weakness is available, you strike, and you strike hard.
Yeah. So this will be a quick one for Charlie, as he'll be on to refights next. Meanwhile, Dagit having a lot of trouble with this third anxiety room with the Chanky Makers. Now, I'm surprised he was not switching to that air shooter, which actually went across the screen, even though it went up. It might be able to reach the furthest Chanky Maker away from us. But right now, in refights for Charlieboy, we are going to hear one music, and we're going to hear it for the entire stage without false music interruption. And it looks like our music of choice today is Wire Sponge 2 from Extreme 2.
So thanks to Dagit's unfortunate slip up, which comes in conjunction with Charlieboy's power slip up, Dagit takes another death somewhere. He was
it was a chandelier. He destroyed it, but he didn't wait for the hitbox to go away, so that's what happened.
Dagit's just unfortunately throwing his chance away at a very surprising comeback, as Charlieboy did take a death against Airman in his refight, but unfortunately, that's still not enough. The mistakes that Dagit made is really has basically cost him the match at this point. It might be Charlieboy's race to lose at this point.
In which he might have lost it, but Dagit decided, no, you can have this. Alright, well, Charlieboy's on his third robo. Mind you, Charlieboy did actually die to the first refight he had. I don't remember who it was off the top of my head, but anyway, he's now at his fourth Robot Master coming up. Oh, I'm sorry, he's past the halfway point. I lost track.
It was Airman that Charlieboy died to in the refights. Honestly, I'm wondering about Charlieboy's E-Tank supply, as he's running really low on health. If the situation winds up getting a little crucial, especially if the Wily Machine becomes Buster immune and you gotta dig for weaknesses, health could be a bit of an issue. It's something we're gonna have to keep an eye on. Well, first and foremost, if the Wily Machine is Buster immune.
Always with the ifs.
Well, it's a randomizer is basically full of ifs.
It sure is. Now Dagit finally finding that metal blade for the boo beams. He'll be out of here and into refights himself. Charlieboy taking on Bubble Man, as I believe he has one more Robot Master to deal with, or that was his last one. That was his last one. And so now we get to ask and find out if the machine is weak to the Buster, which it is.
So this should be a very simple fight. Charlieboy should have very little issues. Of course, probably take a bit of damage here and there, but yeah, just plug him away with the Buster in both phases, and you're pretty much on your way to victory road, as Charlieboy is just a few screens away from the alien and a win for this. Surprisingly, I was gonna say surprisingly, but it really wasn't all that surprising in how heated this match was for a little bit.
Yeah, it really was surprising for a little bit there, but you know, at the intro of this race, we talked about how even the slight slip up could cost one of the runners the match, and that's exactly what happened.
It should have cost Charlieboy the match, but unfortunately Dagit made similar errors and wound up just not capitalizing. But right now, the main issue is, let's see what the weakness is for the alien as we go through the first page to see if that's where our weakness is.
Page 2.
It's heat.
It seemed like a seed that was going to end up being heat in the end. We hadn't seen it to this point. But either way, down goes the alien, and with official SRL time of 33:06, Charlieboy is the winner of this race. Meanwhile, Dagit is still in their refights, taking on Crashman.
Well, actually, no. Unfortunately, Dagit opts to forfeit. Just want to take the seed for what it is and just try to rebound in the next seed. Considering how his Raleigh 4 went, probably the best decision. Just take a deep breath, take the loss for what it was, and just try to recover and try to win the next race.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Just get this out of your mind real quick, take a breather, come back, do race 2. So while we are getting set up for race 2 here, we're going to take a few minutes to do a little cleaning here, as our next scheduled race is tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. and that's going to feature the Dagit taking on, and I just had it up in front of me, is RSPC. So look forward to that match right now. There's still several matches to go in group stages, so do stay tuned for future Gm1 2 Randomizer tournament matches.
Yeah, we're actually coming up close to the closer group matches. We still have some group divisions that hadn't gotten too deep into their matches, but we should have those resolved as soon as possible because we're getting closer and closer to our bracket stages, which are double elimination. We're gonna have ourselves a quick little breather in between races. So if you have a quick moment to like get yourself a sip of water, go do some personal business in the bathroom, or whatever you may need to do in between time, feel free to do so. We should be back very, very shortly with our next race.
Yep. Let's look at the brackets here, and it looks like we have 11 in total that need to get scheduled at some point. But while we're on it, let's take a look at our group stages and just run down what's happened so far. So in Group A, we have Prodigy and Casual Tom moving on for their group. Prodigy doing a clean sweep through the stages, with Casual Tom coming in second in the group, going 3-1 with his only loss being to Prodigy. In Group B, we have Siberian Bull 9, myself, doing a clean sweep in Group B, and Treble Star going 3-1 in Group B, and as the representatives of that group. Now in Group C, right now we got Kame with a 2-1 record, as he's done with all his matches. We still have matches scheduled for Metalo taking on both Dragon Metal Queen and the Mother Brain 86, and a match between Dragon Metal Presence and the Mother Brain 86 to be scheduled. But I'd imagine that group could end up being Kami and Metalo coming out of there. But anything could happen in the races. But we'll find out when those matches are scheduled.
Just to continue to get tasks before we get started, Group D had probably one of the few races groups that hadn't really gotten started. We only had one match between 2% Chungus and the Allen Heffley. That one went to 2% Chungus, while our remaining runners still have yet to get a match on the board. So hopefully within the next couple of days we will have more races in Group D. While Group E is on the cusp of being finished. Like I said, we got Dagit doing this race here and another one tomorrow, as Siberian Bull already stated. And I believe that's almost gonna be it for Group E.
Yeah, we have one no-show, and we're probably gonna end up disqualifying him because we've tried to contact him multiple times about setting up matches. So with tomorrow, with Dagit's race versus RSPC tomorrow, that's pretty much it as far as group stages. For Group E, I should say. So pretty much it's the 3 matches for Group C, and then Group D is scheduling all of their matches. As both our runners have been given the green light, and the second of this best of 3 between Dagit and Charlieboy should be getting underway very shortly.
Just a reminder, as you can see on the screen, Charlieboy did take the first match. It was a very close one. It's just the Wally Ford being the great equalizer and decider as it was, just winds up giving Charlieboy that little bit of extra push to give him the victory when Dagit was just so close, almost coming from behind to just snatch it away. But it's round 2, it's a new race, and hopefully Dagit can just snap back and get right back on it, and hopefully gives us a tie matchup and bring us to a game 3.
Maybe we'll get another tie. We'll have to do a game 4. But it looks like our